She is host of the Propaganda Report. How are you, Monica Perez?
I'm great. How are you?
Jim Dandy. That's something we don't say enough of. Jim Dandy.
I am Jim Dandy right now.
We are
you
Jim
just
Dandy.
Call me Jim.
I'll be Dandy, and there's the name of the podcast, Jim Dandy.
That's it. That's perfect.
Okay, let's do this. I learned about Event 201 from you just 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, when we started going through all this. Yeah. You mentioned it in passing. I started researching it. And then every time I was listening to your podcast or I would go watch something else, I realized that you were prophetic. You and Binkley off the Propaganda Report had been talking about this way before everybody else was.
With real details. That was the thing. We were basically predicting the future from the amount GDP would fall, the amount the stock market would fall, how long it was going to last, when it was going to change direction, what attributes, the name of it, the novel coronavirus.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's set it up. And I don't know how you want to do it. You can tell people where to find you first, or you can talk about the event 201.
Well,
let's talk about the event. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you where you can find me is thepropreport.com. And I have an entire post I put together. I just tweeted it because you said you wanted to talk about it. At Monica Perez Show is my Twitter. And what I named my post was everything you need to know about the novel coronavirus, real and simulated.
Right.
And I went back in that post and I attached all of the links to Event 201 itself, as well as some Spiro Skouras, who I love, did a quick video compilation of some of their videos. And I included my last 4 shows on WSB Radio in Atlanta. I was on for 8.5 years, and I got promptly escorted out the door. It's in the backyard of the CDC, and I was calling their BS on it because they were in on Event 201. The Chinese CDC was in on Event 201. The World Health Organization was in on it. The World Economic Forum, Johns Hopkins, and Bill Gates were the 3 people who conceived it and ran it. So anytime someone says, oh, they, who are they? Who is they that control the world? Just look at the players on the Event 201 website, and you've got a good idea of who the they is. They, them.
Okay, so now that you've intrigued us and we know where to find it, do you want to give us the outline, or do you want to just go bullet points, or do you want me to ask questions? Let's get the info out there.
I'll give you one paragraph. It's Event 201 was an event that took place on one day in October in New York City. It was hosted by Johns Hopkins, the World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates. Its purpose was to get leaders of industry, leaders of governments, leaders of business, civic organizations, everything in one room. There were, I think, 18 people at the table, but they were people who were plugged in digitally. And they were going to simulate a pandemic in order to get these various leaders of the world, leaders of industry, whatever, to contribute what they thought would be the right thing to do in that case, or the best way to prepare. They had NBC, they had the UN, they had all the people I just listed. They had Henry Schein, they had Johnson & Johnson, they had... Was it Johnson? I think it was Johnson & Johnson. They had just basically something from many different walks of life. And that's just what you saw on screen. And what they identified a novel coronavirus, something we hadn't seen before, that went from bats to pigs to humans. It traveled because of international travel. After about 6 months, people thought it was okay to open up again. And then it came back with a vengeance. It lasted for 18 months. It crashed the economies of the world. It completely changed how we did things. We had shortage of medical equipment like masks. We were working hard on a vaccine as the only hope. And then what I thought was the kicker from the very beginning were their 7 calls to action. And they told us the 7 things that they wanted to come out of this prep. And I will say a couple of the really important points was how they were going to do this. And 2 of the ways they were going to do it, which they go into in depth, is suppress and control social media and mainstream media to the point of actually one person suggested they arrest people who were spreading misinformation. And then the other way, which wasn't really highlighted that much, it was just a little idea thrown out there, was that, or actually, and it was also in the call to action, that they would demonstrate to business how devastating this could be and get business to have a personal interest, a vested interest in pressuring policymakers to implement the policies that the World Economic Forum and that whole cabal wanted, including what they said, using soft power by getting these oligarchs, these titans, these rich, influential people, and having them pick up the phone. I mean, this is what they said, and call political leaders and pressure them to do what the business leaders said they wanted, but it's really what the World Economic Forum. So this not only explains what's happening right now, but it reveals the mechanisms of how the powers that be operate and who the powers that be are. And it also shows that all of this can happen in the cloak of doing good for humanity. So this simulation, in everybody's mind, they could plausibly say, we were just trying to prepare for a pandemic. And now that we have a pandemic, they can say, look, that was good. We should be prepared. And we can shut down the world because pandemics are very bad. When I would say all of this stuff was fabricated, only one or two people even need to know that the agenda is not how to deal with a pandemic. The agenda is how to change the world. So now the World Economic Forum has stuff out called the Great Reset. And now we can usher in the fourth industrial revolution. The International Monetary Fund calls it the Great Transformation. You'll listen to institution after institution saying, oh my gosh, we're sorry the pandemic happened, but boy, can we make a lemonade by making everything digital, by eliminating minimum wage workers, by implementing UBI, a universal basic income. They are changing the world and we're not going back, and they're doing it. It's as bad as and equivalent to a war. We are never, ever going back to the before times.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for tuning in today. Please exit to the right and to the left, or just jump off back. The hell kind of. Jeez almighty.
Some thickets. But you want me to be realistic. People always tell me, don't be Debbie Downer or whatever. I'm not Debbie Downer, because facing that reality revealed to me the answer, which I had never realized before. And now I know the real answer.
Growing your own food.
Yes, that I always jawboned for liberty as a function of government. What a fool. I didn't even believe in it. I don't even believe that. I believe the American experiment failed. I saw the writing on the wall a long time ago, but because I got that radio show and not everybody is on that page, I did see the good in the Bill of Rights, of course. And the more we stuck with it, the better. But we only stuck with it in the face of Obama. We don't stick with it in the face of Trump. And that is when I began to lose faith. And now that people are so terrified of trillions of invisible monsters that are everywhere and trying to kill everyone, that they are willing to live in fear and cower. And I would say everybody thinks that they would fight the American Revolution, they'd pick up their musket and they would die for liberty, but they won't. They won't. They won't even risk mild flu-like symptoms for it.
Well, and the other side of this is, I think some people, I haven't, but I think there are some people that think I keep hearing once we get past this, and even if this is this virus, when is the last time we've gone 5 years without a virus of some sort? It's not going to be the last time. They're just doing it's just we're inching it up every time. It's not like there's not a virus next year.
I think there's virus. Things. I think the actual nature, I think people don't think like the theory of evolution is a theory. Germ theory is a theory. Theories that have been around for more than 100 years have to make you scratch your head. Why can't they prove them? Because they don't understand the mechanism by which they work, which means they don't know what the mechanism is of disease transmission. And I would say what they tell us about viruses it's certainly not proven. So you can say, well, there's another virus around the corner. I would say peel that onion back a little bit and look at what are proven to be causes of disease: toxicity, radiation, stress, and poor nutrition, bad lifestyle. Take those four things and you can resist. Even if the virus germ theory is correct, that is going to get you through. Plus they're going to punctuate this by the vaccine. So that is going to cause a lot of health problems later. And I predict a fertility crash.
I've got a buddy that does the Holistic Navigator podcast who is big on the immunity toolkit. He also owns a health store. Ed Jones, one of the smartest guys I know. Go check out his podcast. But, I think sometimes we also forget that we are part of this biological environment. It's not like we are anxious. It's not like we're the aliens. Our bodies are made to adapt to the world we live in if we are getting enough sunlight, getting enough exercise, eating the right foods, and making sure that the foods we eat don't have certain chemicals in them. So, and we're never going to get to a place where people just don't die. And I'm in a high risk category. And I'm saying that as somebody that if I get this, I'm going to be struggling.
If we were not totally suited to cohabitate with microbes, the human race would not exist.
There's 7 billion of us.
Right. And then conversely, if that's the right, conversely, whatever, if bacteria and viruses killed the host, there wouldn't be any that lived on human beings because they would kill them all. Yeah. So what happens to a virus is, even according to the actual theory as it is it disseminates, and as it gets around to more and more people, it becomes more benign so that it can thrive, it can reproduce itself, it can get around without killing the host all the time, because anything that always kills the host dies. And I was looking at the morbidity numbers, the mortality numbers in the US from the CDC, and it looks to me going down to lower than they have ever been in history from what I'm seeing. So that's called regression to the mean. And this was my theory all along, is that in New York and that area, they changed the policy of how to deal with certain kinds of illnesses. So instead of giving oxygen to people who are hypoxic, they were giving them ventilators and reaching at some point a 98% mortality rate on ventilators. Now, that is not the correct protocol. That was a protocol designed to help other people, not the patient.
They were doing something they were trying.
And so they spiked, I think they spiked mortality in a population that was pretty close to death anyway. Right. And that if you accelerate the death rate, where are you taking that from? Future deaths. So I was waiting to see, and I mean, I don't know, there are many, many, many factors. So I'm not going to take it as gospel, as support of what I'm saying, but I'm looking for that regression to the mean to show that over a 2-year period, I'm going to think of it as over a 24-month period, all of 2020, all of 2021, so take 20 and see if the mortality rate is the same as it was in 2018 and 2017. Now, 2017 had a terrible flu in Europe. If you look at those numbers now, that's a spike.
I saw a few articles, and then I want to go through some bullet points about stuff you just said.
Sure.
And then we're going to move into some other stuff and get into your tweets. Real quick, shout out to John and Mike who said hello. Thank you guys for joining us. So I also saw articles, and I think they were specific to certain cities or states, but there was more than one about the deaths and automobile accidents actually was the highest ever in March or April when there was the shutdown. Think of that.
I think it's fatality rates.
I'm sorry. It's fatality rates. Yes, I apologize.
Rates. Yes. Rates, not numbers.
But my thought on that was that to me is, of course, it's going higher speed, and people can. It's like the Autobahn. They were flying, and we're not used to that. We're used to driving fast in traffic, like with NASCAR. So when you put us around less traffic. But I thought it was pretty interesting because when you start seeing things that are a little outside of what you would expect.
Yes, there are definitely net impacts. So people say to me, when I said there was mortality trough, like the mortality was completely offset, there was no increase in mortality, people said, well, that's because people don't get sick and die as much when they're not going out. And I said, well, then if the number is exactly the same as the numbers saved is exactly the same as the numbers of people dying of COVID, then that's the number of people who would always be saved by staying in. So why aren't we always doing it? And likewise, and so also that's somewhat offset by all the people who might be dying because they are not seeking out help. So
they can't go to the hospital. They're scared to go to the doctor.
A lot of variables, and I am absolutely happy to analyze any scientific evidence they want to put before me to justify the policies they are making in my name with my money that affect me under my authority. So if they want me to crunch the numbers, they need to give me the numbers. They take my money the CDC takes my money for those numbers. And where are the numbers coming from? Johns Hopkins, which does not have the same level of accountability and transparency as a government agency would. And they are the ones who ran Event 201. So the Johns Hopkins numbers, to me, there's no reason to have any, there are reasons to be skeptical of their numbers for sure.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to go through the list of things you just said, and you don't have to comment on all of them, but you said in the Event 201 that it was from bats to pigs, or somewhere pigs were in there. Did you read the article about a month ago where now they said they found a different strain in pigs? I thought that was pretty funny that you said that. I think it's also telling they were testing our food supply, because now we go back to a second. If we go through a second shutdown, I think that's going to be a big deal.
I agree.
One of the things you and I have talked about in the past that I think they were doing with the Event 201 is testing how we, the people, would respond. Because if I'm not mistaken, you and I talked about one of the outcomes of this, or one of the byproducts, was creating a little bit of mistrust and chaos. They anticipated that.
What do you mean?
From the media, well, there was going to be
Yeah.
It's going to be, because you were saying they might even arrest people for fake news.
Oh, actually, that goes to a different one. It goes to Event 201, but there was another one that only came to my attention later after I was well immersed in the Event 201 thing. It was a Rockefeller Foundation document from 2010. It had 4 scenarios of, I don't think they were all pandemics. No, they weren't, but they were like world-changing events and how to deal with them. And this is how I think the powers that be, that they figure stuff out. They cannot control every detail, but they anticipate how a major event could direct the course of the future. It's a scenario analysis. It was run by the Global Business Network, which is the guys from the Esalen Institute, where they're guys from culture-changing initiatives that have been revealed as having CIA roots. These guys were in there helping them, and one of the scenarios was called Lockdown, and it was about a pandemic, and it also talked about suppressing media, and it said it went from suppressing health information, misinformation, and disinformation to political misinformation, disinformation, and et cetera, whatever that could possibly even be, because of the political unrest that this schism was causing, this conflict was causing. And we are headed right to that now. Twitter is on the chopping block. It will be censored by the election.
Isn't it odd for an event, for something like Event 201 to occur, and it's not the first time something like that they've had those kind of meetings, but then when something happens, it seems like no one was prepared. You know what I'm saying? It feels to me a little weird to know that they had this big meeting and now it happened, and everybody's like, man, the leaders don't know what to do. And I go, I thought they just had this big preparedness meeting.
Well, the day I released my post, which got a little notoriety because I was just escorted off of WSB for absolutely no apparent business reason. That day I had put in my post, you can look at it right now, I have not edited it at all. I said these guys could give themselves some cover if they said, wow, holy crap, we just did this thing. We kind of saw it coming. And here are our recommendations. We learned a lot, but everybody who you're seeing on the news was in that Event 201 simulation. Mike Ryan, the guy who wears the uniform at the CDC, Inglesby, from Johns Hopkins, they were all there and there on camera and everything. Then I said, well, why aren't you saying that? And that night or the next day, a YouTube video popped up from the World Health Organization or the World Economic Forum saying, oh, we did the simulation and here's what we learned. They didn't promote it, but they gave themselves a little cover. That's happened to me 2 or 3 times, or I've said something like, hey, man, this is your Achilles heel, and they've addressed it. But maybe I just smell it in the air. And sometimes I know they were aware of me, but I mean, I'm not like big time. It's just they have tendrils everywhere.
Well, I just think it's odd for
tentacles
people to be prepared. They were not very prepared. And I don't know if that's intentionally.
Well, they were prepared, but their goal is something different from what you're talking about. So
All right,
they're achieving their goal perfectly, better than they could have ever imagined. I'm sure they're stunned.
yeah, I don't want to
They're
talk about that. That
stunned
makes
at
me
the
scared.
value of fear. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's just our fear has, and that's the thing. It's the fear. Of course, fear is how they get your rights.
But we got so used to living not in fear. I mean, we went 100 years ago. We lived in a lot
I
more
don't know
fear.
about that. No, I disagree.
I think we
I'll
got
tell you
so
why.
comfortable. I think we got so comfortable that now when
No.
fear hits us, we get paralyzed.
We used to live in greater danger, not with greater fear. We have less danger now and more fear
Yeah.
because we're completely disarmed mentally and skills wise.
So I
as an
agree.
individual.
I agree with you, and that's what I was trying to say. In other words, 100 years ago, we lived in way more fear. I mean, because we were around real danger. We had to do a lot of hard work to survive. Now we've got so comfortable and soft that when perceived dangers occur, our fight and flight responses become this.
What has happened to us, and this is why I liked Technological Slavery, which was basically Kaczynski's manifesto, is that he talks about how much more suited to human nature an autonomous, meaningful lifestyle is, to the point where I think he was probably trying to blow us back into the Stone Age. But back then, we were empowered, or took the power to control our environment, from growing food to killing dangerous animals, be they four-legged or walking upright. Now we can't do either of those things. We have lost the skills, and if you look closely, we have allowed laws to encroach on those, from the point where there was a case, a really landmark case that changed how that really was the watershed moment for the Constitution regulating, being read to be allowed to regulate everything in the country, is when the Commerce Clause was read to restrict what a farmer could do with his food that he was feeding his own family. They said they could regulate that food because that is food that should be in the market and it isn't. I mean, it was a really twisted thing. So they can regulate all the food, and of course they regulate our ability to defend ourselves. And then they've disempowered us, and then they disempower us mentally through the public school systems and the media. I mean, it's really obvious at this point.
The media and the school system, I think, is becoming more obvious quicker. And I think one of the things that I have come to realize over the course of our conversations is over the last 100 years, 150 years, it used to be we protect my family and our neighborhood. Now I've handed that off to the government. It used to be we used to grow our food and do trade. Now I've handed that off to the food folks. That used to be where we had to be innovative when we build our houses or we've handed everything that we used to do with these and this, we've handed off, which leaves us free time to do yoga. Or I guess what I'm saying.
And you have to.
Or boxing.
You have to do yoga. You
fill your time up. And that makes us soft, I think, sometimes. And I like yoga, so don't get pissed off, all you yoga
Yes,
people.
yes.
I do yoga.
Albert J. Nock wrote a book, Our Enemy of the State. And I think it was in that he laid out the zero-sum game of social power versus state power. So there's a ball of power, and it's all yours. And what you give up is gone from you, and it is not. It isn't magnified. You don't keep it anymore. So when it used to be, if there was a fire, everybody lined up with buckets all the way down to the river.
Yep.
And then his example was, now if there's a fire, you just keep going because you know there's a fireman. And then I saw an article that I think was in England. It made helping in a fire illegal because you get in the way. So it got to the point where not only were you not autonomous, you didn't think about helping, and then you're not permitted to be involved in it. And that, I think, is a pattern in everything from self-defense to food production.
What do you think about the COVID
and
numbers?
Pot.
Don't just. That was like a Tourette's. We were talking and pot.
Pot, because pot
behind me. What are we doing?
Probably the least harmful pot you could ever have is what you grow in your backyard from seeds, and then they make it into a liquid that you vape and end up in the hospital because of regulations. It's the stupidest thing. But anyway, so you were kind of better off when it was illegal.
You Californians.
Oh, right. It is legal out here.
You only do it in California. Nobody else smokes pot anywhere in America. What do you think about the numbers that were going to the CDC that seemed to be lag time on being reported now going to the White House? Because I've seen a bunch of my friends post, this is a travesty. They're going to hide the numbers. And then I read the reason why. And it's because
I don't know the story.
Well, there's lag time. So, all the numbers were getting sent to the CDC and it was open source, open shared to the White House. Well, what they're doing now is now the White House has mandated all the numbers go to them and they will open source share it to the CDC. The CDC's not lost access to the data. It's just the White House.
Who's sending the data? The states?
All the hospital reporting agencies.
Why can't it be simultaneous?
I don't know. And they say it's this. What I don't get is when they say it's the same information and it's still going to be shared, then why does it matter? If everybody has access to the exact same data.
Right. Controlling information is an earmark of tyranny.
I don't get it.
And where does Johns Hopkins get their information? I'd like to know.
Well, see, and I think there's only like 88% of the hospitals that were actually reporting at the time.
Oh, I have an idea of how there could be a problem with that. That's actually disturbing, and I'll tell you why. This has been my theory, which I said earlier in this show, that Johns Hopkins has a lot more latitude to be wrong or even intentionally wrong and kind of cordon off the repercussions of that. Whereas I noticed this I think there are laws, I probably should investigate it a little bit more, but like filing a false death certificate, stuff like that, these are federal offenses. If they're going to start making that level of data manipulation at the CDC, heads could roll, where Johns Hopkins could shrug it off because it's not a repository of official information. Now, the CDC is getting its information from the White House. The White House is the scapegoat of all scapegoats. I mean, if Trump Trump will be written down in history as the most lawless president of all time. I'm not saying that he is. He's definitely not. He's nowhere. They're all lawless. But if they filter the information to the CDC will not be responsible for the garbage in, garbage out that is short of results. And that may solve the problem. I've been wondering, because I look at these CDC numbers and there is a trough coming, a dip in the numbers, that regression to the mean that is really going to raise some eyebrows. And I think if the White House can be seen as manipulating it, it'll get them off the hook and us on the hook.
I think too, though, that the White House was not always confident that the numbers were being reported in a non-biased way. And so, but here's my theory on it. Here's my theory. I think they're probably going to report them with their own bias anyway, pick and choose the numbers that they really want to highlight to the media. But, we just read the article and you may have seen it, I think it was in Florida where the motorcycle death was listed as a COVID death. And so when you read stuff like that, everybody goes, that's just an outlier. It's one story. And I'm like, how do you know?
Numerous places in Florida were reporting 100% positives. They were reporting their test rates. But I have to just say, not in every single case, but in this case, I think it's kabuki theater. It's a game. I don't think the White House is trying to get real information and whatever. I mean, they are ushering in an era of not only no states' rights as the feds are pushing down on the states. Where did Dean go is such a great tweet of mine. And he articulated this clearly. And so did Mr. A friend of my show. That Trump is pushing down onto the states his federal recommendations and threatening to withhold funding if they don't obey them. That's a big problem for states' rights. And Kemp is suing a mayor for a local law. This subsidiarity is absolutely critical to my bug out plan. So I tell you, I've been trying to fight for the Bill of Rights. And as soon as Trump came along, people started telling me I was quibbling about semantics when I was reading the Constitution in defense of Trump. So that's over. I need a farm. I need a gun. I need some chickens. I need people who live near me who feel similarly.
You need a well. You need water.
I need a well. Well, I think if I go to Texas, I'm going to have one of those rain barrels, which could be illegal. So by then, this is what I absolutely have to do. I wouldn't be able to podcast anymore, but I will spend the 4 or 5 hours a day I spend doing this stuff, not only growing things and everything, but being down at the council, making sure that my rights to self-defense, my private property rights, my rights to collect rainwater on my own land, my rights to grow things, my rights to have animals are preserved. But if Kemp gets his way and Trump gets his way, those local governments will have less power, and I will be beholden to a regional government that includes a city. that doesn't want me to have this stuff or care. And I'm going to be a tiny minority because by person, it's small. Go ahead. Try.
No, here we go. No, I'm not trying anything. I just want to make all our Trump lovers happy. I don't think it would be any different under Hillary Clinton or a Democratic president.
It sure would, because all your
worse.
Trump lovers would be screaming bloody murder. No,
It would be worse.
they wouldn't be co-opted. It will take a Republican. It's called the contrary law of democracy.
But I've asked you this before. Do you think it would be worse under Hillary?
No, because she would try to make it worse, and there would be 4 million long guns in DC the day that she said shit like that.
Okay,
but there aren't.
Okay,
because people are like you are telling me to shut up.
I'm not telling you to shut up. I get you on a podcast every week.
I know.
How am I telling you to shut up?
I'm just,
all of a sudden your mic goes out. Then
I know. I'm just making a point.
I know you, and I understand and agree with most of what you say, but we always come down to this crucial dividing point of yes, but how do we move forward?
Trump
in reality?
Is Batman.
Well, I just have to figure out how to move forward.
Mine is the reality. Get your guns. That's your reality.
I got you. I got. I mean,
on your own property. No. I'm saying get your 4 acres. Get your wine.
Can I borrow some money? Can I borrow some money?
That's the problem, right? We put all our money into Caesar's coffers. We converted all of our blood, sweat, and tears over the years onto those coins with Caesar's face on them.
Wait a minute. I got a great solution. You have way more Patreon participants than I do, but I need a few. I only get a couple $100 a month.
You want to steal some?
Yeah, I just need some Patreon. And then I'll go get me just a couple acres, put a little fence up, get some good dogs, get me a couple extra guns. And
5 hours a day. I think you could get...
I do about 10 hours, 15 hours a week.
10 or 15. I mean, of prep and of work.
Oh, yeah. Well, prep, I do about, for this podcast, I do about an hour. But for other podcasts. I have 10
patrons for every hour a week that I work.
You have 1 million patrons. So how do you get in all those millions of hours of work?
I have 400 patrons.
Okay, let's do this.
I split that with Binkley, who also puts in the same amount of work.
And you both deserve it. And I encourage everybody to go become one, by the way.
I've been working at a law for 9 years.
So a lot of stuff's going on when we got all the headlines of the COVID and all these other things. You're probably up on this more than I am. Has Hillary, is she going to be required to testify? Did that come down? Oh, I don't know. I thought she was.
Who cares about this stuff? We're 7 billion people are under house arrest. They're legislating while the First Amendment is suspended. Who cares? We've got $10 trillion. We've got a $4 trillion deficit.
But at this
Thank
point,
you, Donald Trump.
It's like Monopoly money. It's just get 2 games and combine the money.
Unless you're retired and that's all the money you have, and all of a sudden it's worth 1/10 of it was what it was before. Have you seen the prices lately? Have you gone to the grocery store? It's double. In my experience, it's double. I went to Costco. I was
moved to Tennessee. It's better.
I would have.
Come to Chattanooga.
I wanted to.
We got hills. We got something that they don't have, and I love Texas, but we got places up here in the mountains you can get lost in. Come on up.
It's all about
nobody will come find you up in the mountains. Come on.
I'm married to a normie.
So I want to touch on something that we talked about last week, and then we'll jump into your tweets.
Sure.
Okay, last week we talked about a cashless society and all the implications. So I read an article this week, and I heard it on another podcast, the Dan Bongino podcast, who I love Dan Bongino. But anyway, he said he posted an article that once you go to cashless society, they'll be able to track, if you don't have any money, guess what? We see that you're buying that gun. If you don't, we can stop spending with vendors. That price can be doubled. We can slow down how many guns they can sell. It opens up not just your tracking, but vendors and business tracking. It'll open you up to audits. It can open you up to that social score. But the gun part and the donating to political party part, I thought was I was like, that's how they stop it. They don't have to pass many laws or restrictions. They can just put hurdles in the way because they control how.
And that's what they do. I mean, Einstein said that it was that she would stop COVID relief funds for places that didn't have mandated masks. Trump said it about the education. The policing is about the money. These levers of control are subversions of the Constitution, and they should be looked at that way, but they're not. And my daughter yesterday went to a restaurant. I gave her a couple of bucks, and she called me and said they would not take the money because they won't touch her cash.
It's illegal. They're not allowed to do that. They have to. If I'm not mistaken, they have to take. If it's currency, legal currency, they have to take it. And if they don't, they're going to get. If you're a litigious person,
I do live in a communist country. I'm in California.
California.
She was in LA.
Okay, let's see here. And I think some of these are in the tweets, but I'm going to throw one out there that I don't think you've mentioned. But it's more of just something I'm going to feed to you and let you kind of do research next week if you want to. Did you read any articles about China rounding up Muslims?
And the Uyghur?
Yeah.
The Uyghur?
Have you read
I haven't read it lately, but I was following that story for
this week.
Years,
they started rounding them up,
shaving
the heads, and putting them in camps.
Wow. Are you sure?
Mistaken. I say that out loud. Let me check it out while we're talking.
I think that was the region where they started registering knives. You had to have your name etched into that years ago, etched into a knife as a weapon. Talk about control.
I will look it
Just
up.
The Uyghurs.
That's true. I heard that on another podcast, and I was going to ask you about it. That's what I was going. That's what I was. I
don't know, but I will make a note of it.
Thank you so much. That was my contribution to your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, let's go to some tweets. You want to?
Okay.
And I don't remember if I sent this one to you. I hope I did, but you posted one about the Arkansas.
Can we say hi to Franny? Brad.
Yes. Yeah. Like, hey, Franny. And Mike gave a laughing emoji. And Brad.
He was talking about them not talking about Event 201. Just as a reminder, CDC US, CDC China, World Health Organization, Johns Hopkins, World Economic Forum, Bill and Melinda Gates, the UN, NBC, Henry Schein, which is a healthcare supply company, Johnson & Johnson, and just the list goes on and on and on.
And I think I sent you this one. If not, we can talk about it quickly. They're rounding. They have COVID centers in Arkansas where they can.
I saw that.
But I think that's for homeless people who voluntarily want to go there, right?
It said it was for people who couldn't shelter at home for family reasons, but it did not say who decides that they couldn't.
That's true.
And of course, it's just a foot in the door. There's never but it's only. There was a thing called smart quarantining. It's the idea is out there where they come to your house and take the kids away. I mean, just visions of the Gestapo. JJ Boogie.
Yeah, that's a t-shirt.
Way to put it. Oh my gosh, I have to plug something. I have to plug something.
Plug it.
There is a documentary called The Monopoly on Violence, which I think I'm a kind of producer of because I contributed when it was first starting and they were still saying, we'll give you credits. I didn't look. I didn't double check. But anyway, I'm a supporter of the Monopoly on Violence documentary, which turned out fantastic. So much better than my wildest dreams. I thought it would be Rule 101, but it's just fantastic. I loved it. I already bought books out of it. And JJ Boogie did the music. The music was fantastic. He does my music on my show. That's Jason Reichert for y'all. Yeah. Okay. JJ, knife etching. Is that like the Phantom's skull ring leaves your brand on your victims? It does not. Nice reference. But it does leave your name on the murder weapon. So I guess it would be pretty easy to frame somebody under those circumstances.
All right. You posted this on Twitter about, I think, a day or two ago. A CNN writer, I am not an MD or even I know that vaccines work. Do you know what that one's about?
Yeah, Chris D'Elia. Yeah, I absolutely do.
Go for it. Tell everybody what it was for.
Here, let me have the quote right here, actually. It says, the headline was Rand Paul has some wildly irresponsible ideas about a future coronavirus vaccine. So Rand Paul said, I don't want to get a vaccine because I have tested positive for COVID, which means I now have antibodies. That was Rand Paul's statement. Rand Paul.
Say that again. You froze up. He said, what did he say? You froze up. What did he say?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Rand Paul is an ophthalmologist, and he said he tested positive for COVID. Therefore, he has antibodies and would not like it if they mandated a vaccine and wanted to give it to him because he would not need it. So Chris D'Elia said that's the worst CNN, the worst. Chris D'Elia is classic CNN. He's the worst. So here is the quote from Chris D'Elia. He says, I'm not a medical doctor, and even I know that A, vaccines work and are widely recognized as a good thing by the medical community. And I guess Paul had said maybe that they weren't sure if it was going to work yet. And that B, we simply do not know yet whether having had COVID-19 makes you immune from getting it again. So Chris Lisa said, we know vaccines do work and that this one will work, even though we don't have it yet. And we don't know if you can get COVID twice or not.
But I've heard stories that you can.
Whatever. Here's the problem. That sentence is contradictory in itself. The principle behind vaccines is that exposure to the pathogenic DNA creates antibodies in your system. So you can either get it through the innate immune system or they can inject it directly into the acquired immune system. But the point is you're generating antibodies. If your body does not generate antibodies to it that can preserve your immunities, then the vaccine cannot work unless they're talking about a gene editing vaccine. And that's a whole different story. But actually the innate immunity that Rand Paul claims to have, and I'm sure to the extent that whole theory is true, he would have it. The innate immunity is much better than the acquired immunity because the innate immunity also gives immunity to a whole host of related illnesses. As a matter of fact, I would say that we all kind of have, probably most of us have some basic coronavirus antibodies, which is why an antibody test cannot possibly be, I don't think there's any chance the PCR test or the antibody test is specific enough to COVID-19, which is probably why it's so riddled with inaccuracies, that because 1/3 of all colds, all the winter colds basically are coronavirus and all the summer colds are rhinovirus. And so 1/3 of all colds are basically coronavirus and they're similar.
Well, and I've said this to a bunch of my friends, we know so little. I think it's odd when everybody acts like they know so much.
Why do you think we know so little? I mean, what do you think the reason is?
I don't even know if it's we know so little. I just know that there's so much information out there that always seems to be contradictory, whether it's intentionally put out as to keep us looking around like whack-a-mole, or if it's because they just don't know and they're trying to make us all feel at ease. But when you have people saying masks work, masks don't work, 6 feet away works, no, it could be airborne now. Asymptomatic you can't really pass it if you're asymptomatic. Kids can go to school. Kids shouldn't go to school. Literally, if I take headlines in a 2-week period, I can make an argument for either being a complete hermit and all of us just becoming, in monasteries, or we should all be out partying like it's Woodstock. Because
that's why I would argue and have argued from the very first moment I talked about this at all. You need the scientific studies based on the scientific method, the double-blind control group studies. So you take people with masks, you take people with no masks, you take them with the surgical masks, you take them with the non-surgical masks, and you put them in an environment, like 3 different environments, and you determine at the beginning and the end what the infection rate is in those environments. They are not doing it.
And yes to what you said. Here's the problem we live in, and we go back to one of the reoccurring themes, no matter what the topic is, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, whether it's COVID, whether it's headlines, is they've created such a world now that when a headline is posted, we are also quick to post something that confirms what we want to believe. Always
That's
Trumpers,
true.
Never Trumpers, that I'm going to post it. I don't really know what kind of research they did. I just know it's in big letters and it's from the website I really like. And so I can show Monica, look how right I am.
And you can base your opinion on the authority, the source, and both sides are using that. And I
think they're all one side. That's the thing I don't think we understand.
That's what I think, of course.
It's the same bird, 2 wings.
That's why the Rockefeller Foundation story about the pandemic, scenario about the pandemic, was called Lockstep. And that's exactly what we're experiencing.
Let's go to another tweet. You ready? Oh, hold on a second. Let's post this real quick. Let's show it. And then, because you're better. I keep forgetting my glasses.
Yeah. Sweeping huge federal policy implementations over a maybe. the lasting negative effects will be worse than the virus itself.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And the current effects. And what happens to all the people who would say live free or die? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I don't think they're going to die, but is it worth living like this? And the thing is, we're not producing. So this consumption that we're doing has got to come home to roost. I want to know where JJ is playing tonight, if he's playing.
It's like a ratchet.
Oh, there it is. There. Sorry, in the chat is the documentary. Sorry.
Yeah, I posted. Thank you too. Yeah, Monopoly on Violence. JJ posted it. There's the link to YouTube. You can go watch it.
Great.
But it's like a ratchet. They take society and they go, and they take us up to the next ratchet, and we don't go backwards. You said it earlier. We don't go really back. They just keep doing it one little ratchet at a time.
Bob Higgs wrote a great book called Crisis and Leviathan. And he taught Leviathan is the big state, and every crisis makes it bigger and it never goes backwards. And they caught on to that, it's like what Ron Emanuel said, you never want a good crisis go to waste. But the difference between you and me is that I assume that they have dumbed us down enough that they don't even have to wait for a crisis to emerge organically. They just create them. And we believe it.
Most people another tweet from Monica Perez's Twitter account. So when people ask me why I think some stories are fake, you posted about a rabbi hurt in a California synagogue shooting admits fraud.
Yeah. So there was a thing called the Poway, P-O-W-A-Y synagogue. It had a shooting about a year ago, and it was part of a rash of anti-Semitic crimes. And I was looking into one in New Jersey, which was totally, totally fishy. I don't think it had to do with it. Just the story was really fishy. I didn't look into the Poway one, but it was I think it was around the same time. And I just thought, when the guy has the perpetrator has no history of violence or any kind of particular ideology or anything, the details are lacking. It's weird. And I wonder about it, but the rabbi was so, persuasive, and he continued to preach even though his finger got blown off, and he made a world tour about anti-Semitism. I mean, he really made the story come together, and it came out that he is making a deal with the feds because of a multi-million-dollar tax fraud. He was picked up for this tax fraud in October of 2018. It was $5 million against the IRS. He was FEMA funds he was getting. He would take donations, give 90% back to the person who gave the donation, and he would keep 10%. He didn't even give it to the synagogue. He kept it himself. And this was in the millions. So tax fraud's bad news. And then in April 2019, he comes out with this validating a story that was adding to what I think was this agenda of terror and anti-white nationalists or whatever was going on. And I often look to see if people who are prominent in a shooting or something like that, if they have contact with the FBI or the police like a few months before, I always wonder if they were asked to participate in a PSYOP or a sting or whatever because of their past history. So the juxtaposition between October 2018, him getting picked up, April 2019, him validating this story, and then now the prosecutors are just recommending probation. He didn't even have to pay. Well, I don't know what he had to pay back, but the numbers didn't seem to match. They're not even going to put him in jail from what I can tell. And I just feel like it's possible that when people say, oh, you think that guy's lying? It's like, maybe. Brian Williams was lying. I used to call Brian Williams liar, and people yelled at me for it. And then he went down in flames about something else I was saying he was lying, about Edward Snowden.
All right, next tweet, because this is all designed to get people to go listen to your podcast and go see and go be a Twitter follower, whatever those are called. Twitter follower.
Well, follower, but tweeps are the people we interact. You interact with your tweeps.
I gotta get cool. I gotta get cool.
I'm not cool.
You posted this. It cannot come close to happening again. Biden tells Poroshenko an alleged 2016 call in Ukraine sabotage operations in Crimea.
So Poroshenko apparently, or Ukraine, Russia foiled a terrorist plot against a military base it has. Crimea is basically just a Russian base. Mainly it's their Black Sea port. And it used to belong to Russia. Stalin signed it over to Ukraine, but now it's Russian again. And it the Ukraine coup that we had perpetrated was coming down, it was meeting resistance by the Russian dominated areas, the places where people spoke Russian as a first language, stuff like that. The eastern counties, or whatever you call them, and Crimea. And I don't know if it was leading up to the vote in Crimea or what, but Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, somebody in the government of Ukraine was plotting an attack against a military base there. And Russia foiled it, called it a terrorist attack, blamed the Ukrainian government. Then Biden gets on the phone with Poroshenko. Biden was VP at the time, had a very regular relationship with Poroshenko. There are a lot of tapes. I don't know how many calls there were, but a lot of tapes between those two. Allegedly, those two, sounds like them. And he says to Poroshenko, don't pull that crap again. I'm here. I'm crafting your image in the U.S. You can't, you're going to get caught just because it's your military guys, your CIA. Even if you don't know about it, I believe you didn't know about it, but you're responsible for that. The president takes the heat for it. I don't want to hear this. I hear about any of this again. Basically, taking orders. The guy's taking orders from Biden. And that's why I think they fabricated this or created this call between Trump and Zelensky so that it looked like Trump's was first.
Well, and that's it. And we talked about that in the past. So now if they say stuff about Biden, everybody goes, oh, look at sour grapes. They're just trying to get him back, really. And the really bad one is over here. And real quick, JJ also put a link to the propaganda report in the for Apple. So good job, JJ. Good job.
Thank you.
So you also posted, beginning to think phase 2 will be marked by shortages, food, energy, paper products, hygiene, medical, personal. What? Yeah. And there's an article attached to that, right?
Yeah. So farmers, so the article goes into, it doesn't really cover everything, but it points out what we're seeing here is disruptions in both supply. So you've seen a lot of stuff about meat packing facilities having coronavirus people, some of them, nobody even died. So it's just they get test positive. I think 18% of there was a blood sample from Denmark where 18% of the samples tested positive for COVID, and the samples were all from 2018. So it was COVID-19. Yeah, and that was in the infectious myth. My friend David Crow, who died. It's devastating. You want to talk about it, but he just died. He just died. I mean, he's not my friend, but I call him my friend. I podcasted with him. He was the most important person in the world today, in my opinion, because he ran the Infectious Myth podcast. His stuff was absolutely always, the research was impeccable. I tried to remember that study and I went to his site. The script of his podcast was there. Every reference, every study, he was something else, a real threat to the people who were running the scam. And he was diagnosed with cancer in June and he died already 1 month from his first symptoms to his death. Anyway, I smell a rat. But in any case, he posted that. And so when they were saying that stuff about the meatpacking plant, if nobody's sick and they're just doing positives, but anyway, so they shut down the supply that way. And of course, the demand dries up when all the restaurants close. And so you have supply and demand disruptions. It's very hard to match those things up over time. People work on that, the efficiencies over decades, years. And what's going to happen is you are going to, if that gets disrupted to the point where it can't be predicted, plus fold in China trade problems, COVID international restrictions, sanctions, and whatever kind of international trade problems you might have from negotiations to the COVID stuff, might also interfere with food supplies. And for years and years and years, people have been talking about food shortages and fearing them the way they've been talking about pandemics. And I think that those will be brought to us along with a lot of other fears. And this was saying how this farmer's eggs, he didn't have enough eggs for a while and now he has too many and the restaurants are opening up again, but he doesn't know what to do because they might close down. It's really, they're getting jerked around and it will have the intended consequence of causing us extreme distress. Because Bill Gates said phase 2 would really get people's attention. And I think that's what's in store.
So 2 things. If we have a food shortage, if we create a food shortage or supply shortage, We have this cashless society and people are making less cash. So there's less money. We've got to figure out a way to where we're not spreading germs with money. You have these things eventually, and you know it better than I do. What's going to happen is they're doing this so that eventually they can bring to you the solution. Here's the solution. Now, you said that Bill Gates said phase 2 is going to be worse. Where's that part of the Event 201? Where did you hear that?
Mr. A, friend of the show, texted me a video clip of Bill Gates saying phase 2 is really going to get people's attention, and then laughing a little bit, which was chilling. But I can't, he just sent me the clip. So I didn't see, I can go back and find it. I don't remember what the context was or even what the date was.
All right. Another tweet from Monica Perez. We got about another 10 minutes here. A new map shows the inescapable creep of surveillance.
Oh, yeah.
They're watching us.
Yeah.
Right now on this Facebook Live, they're watching us. They're watching you. I'm not a threat.
Everybody's watching us.
You're the threat, not me.
I know. I'm afraid of making FOIA request on my own self because I don't want to alert them to the fact that they'll look at it and they'll be like, holy crap, like, why isn't she on the A list? So I just wanted to rattle off. It's called the Atlas of Surveillance. I think it appears in Wired.com, but I think it's the Electronic Freedom Frontier and a bunch of other things, or a couple of collaborators. Anyway, I just wanted to point out, I think this understates it dramatically, but just the methods by which they're surveilling us that are listed here on this map, the Atlas of Surveillance, easy to Google, are body-worn cameras, the drones, automated license plate readers, Ring and Neighbors partnership. So people's Ring are giving the police all that camera stuff, camera registry, facial recognition, cell site simulator. So it puts a cell site up that catches you're trying to reach a cell tower with your phone. It catches that. So it finds you. Gunshot detection, which is not just gunshots, but I believe it can listen to conversations too. Video analytics and computer vision. I guess that's looking at you from your computer. I don't know what that is. And predictive policing. Holy crap. That's like Minority Report. Watch that movie. Yeah, there are fusion centers and real-time crime centers that consolidate and process all of that information.
Yeah. Okay. So I got 2 more tweets and then 2 more topics. But first, I'm going to throw this up there because JJ's been good. Gary Noel is keeping David Crow's podcast alive, even if the Infectious Myth website goes down. So there you go.
Yes. Yes. What do you think, JJ? Can I ask you if you think there's any chance there was foul play? I mean, I just feel like with colorectal cancer, I'd be surprised if you get your diagnosis and then a month later,
yeah,
you're draining fluid out of your abdomen. Really?
I had a friend. Yeah. Well, I mean, because you don't know, I mean, just personally, I've just had family members that waited so long till they went. They lived with stuff for so long.
So my nephew, who's like 37, I think, when he got diagnosed, it was so bad that the day he went in for his first check, he got a colostomy bag. Oh. It was inoperable, and he lived 4 years after that.
Wow. Well, everybody's different, but we'll see what JJ says. And
4
I don't know
weeks.
enough. That's quick. All right, here we go. 2 more tweets, and then I got 2 topics. Can you give me another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
These are kind of cool tweets. Well, this one's not cool. Let me do the cool one first. You posted something about the craziest thing you've seen your hubby set up a portable telescope.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And I'm hard to impress. There's this Neowise comet, which annoys me because it's named after like a government program, but it's the thing that found it. It's the government program that detected it in space, the Neowise comet. So we've been trying to see it. It's supposedly just above the horizon from in the northern hemisphere, so it's a little hard to see, I think, because we've got trees and everything. So maybe go to the beach for that. There's a thought. Okay, anyway, so he pulled out this backpacking telescope he has, the Orion Go Scope. It was a gift, but I think it was only like $100. And he set it up to see the comet, but we couldn't see it. And later on that night, he said, Saturn and Jupiter are so bright in the sky. Let's look at them. So we looked at them, and you could see the rings of Saturn. It looked exactly like the emoji. I mean, not in color. It was just white, reflected sun, but it was just, the rings were, it was tilted up. It was so crazy looking. You could see the space between the planet and the rings. It blew my mind. And then Jupiter, that was even cooler, believe it or not, because you could see the giant planet. I think I even saw a little bit of stripiness and 4 moons circling around it in a perfect plane. It was freaking cool. And that's with our craft backpacking telescope. So he's going to get more magnifying eyepieces and everything so we can see it a little closer. I'm so excited. And that is such a nerdy thing, but you'd think I'd have liked it already. I'm not much of a hobbyist.
A buddy of mine that is a radio DJ here. He's a radio talk show host here, and he's been around forever. He's super good. I've actually suggested he gets you on his radio show. Sure. But he is a big hang glider too. So there's a picture that he went up to the hang gliding because I live up here in the mountains, and let's see can you see? That's him sitting. I'm trying to get it to where I don't think I can get it. Let me try. Anyway, that's him right there. Down. Oh. Yeah, but nobody will be able to hear us. But I'll let you see it real quick. That was him.
Where is
that's him at a hang gliding where they take off, and they're waiting for the sun to go down so they can watch the satellite go across that you're talking about.
The comet?
Yeah, that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing up at the hang gliding. That's the launch pad. Wow. So him and his grandson went up there the other night, and they sat there last night and watched it. And I thought that was pretty cool for Jeff Styles.
I totally want to do that. I mean, I want to go to a place where I can see it, because you wouldn't think it'd have a lot of tall trees here, but there are a lot of tall trees here. He
just went up on the mountaintop there where they jump off and do hang gliding stuff. So all right, let me remove that and get us back up here. Sorry, that was a little digression there.
Oh, thank God for digressions.
This is the last tweet, then we got 2 more headlines, and then we'll push it off here. You did a tweet: assassinations by induced heart attack and cancer. What is that?
Because I'm worried about.
And they're showing a gun.
Well, that was just true. That was, I think, was it the Church Commission? I can't remember.
I don't know.
On assassinations in the 70s, which did say that JFK was not killed by a lone gunman. That was the Congress. Congress said that. It's the Committee on Assassination. So they had testimony, which you can see on YouTube, saying that they have a gun that shoots ice, darts made of ice, and in the ice is a poison that can induce a heart attack. And the dart is so skinny that it doesn't leave much of a hole. Probably never going to see that hole. And the ice melts and the poison enters your bloodstream and you have a heart attack. I always wondered if that's what happened to Breitbart. Or actually, I read a book called Iceman by coincidence, and he said that he used to assassinate people by spraying that stuff in their face, walking past them in the street, spraying them in the face with aerosolated poison, and then they would just drop dead of a heart attack on the sidewalk and no one would know. And I always thought that happened to Andrew Breitbart, and I happened to meet his sister just by complete random whatever. Someone said, that's Breitbart's sister. So I asked her, and she said no. I said, do you think he was assassinated? She's like, don't be ridiculous. I was like, oh, okay.
I bet you're hell at parties.
Was that kind of, you think that was like a little bit of a
hey, how are you?
Tacky question there. That's why I'm afraid of insulting David Crow's family. I love him, truly, like tears were shed. And I hope I'm not trying to make anything irreverent. I just genuinely, I worried about him before. See, I think I've even said on my show, I worry for his safety.
Right.
That I've said that before.
I'll just edit this part out of the video because I don't want anybody to start getting on my good life. You know, I got kids and stuff. No, I don't care.
You have to have firsthand information. You have to have information. In my opinion, what puts you in danger is having real information that other people don't have.
All my information is like 12th hand. So,
yeah, me too.
Yeah. There are 2 headlines I just wanted to get your quick feedback on. Did you read about the demands by the teachers union out in California? They were not going to go back to work unless they took the no more charter schools.
Yes, I saw that.
Defund the police. And I kept thinking, how you can't, it really, if that right there was not a wake up call to people going that this is all a big play on something other than COVID, it just drove me insane. And I think
they were just doing it because that's fun for them.
asshole stuff. That's what that is. That's asshole stuff.
But
Tell me it's about the kids, and then
they're not going back anyway.
no. But I mean, the fact that you said we're not going to come back unless you take away options for our kids,
just fire them all. Fuck it.
That's what.
Sorry.
That's another T-shirt. There we go.
All right.
Tolerate the sucks.
You're fired.
So
pull
fired.
that up for John, please.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, I don't mind a bit.
Can't rule it out, Monica. Hard to believe that such a fast progression happens coincidentally to this particular man. Yes, very well put, JJ. That is absolutely 100% my feeling. My two favorite people are both JJ, except for you, Clint, and Franny.
Yeah, thanks, Franny. Me and Franny are okay with not being JJ.
They'll just have to be my two favorite JJs.
Yeah. All right, my last topic for you, and I don't think I sent this to you as a tweet, but I think you tweeted about it. What is your take? So here's what I've seen. I've heard there's this group of people that say they wish the president would do a federal mandate for mask. And I think to myself, I'm glad he's not, because you should give states the power to do what the hell they want to do. It's a state decision.
They have that power.
All right. But then we see unmarked federal cars going around and taking riders off the street. Have you read that? Where they're
I did. Oh, it was federal. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
it was
federal unmarked federal cars are going into towns that have riders after curfew, and they're taking people off the streets that they see doing physical damage or rioting. They're just opening the doors, grabbing them, and taking them. And I just thought that was kind of. And then my group of friends over here, they think, of course they should do that, because we've got to if the governors and mayors aren't going to do anything, which I agree with.
What property are those people on?
Public. Most of the time, or federal.
I don't even believe in public property.
I think this was about the federal.
Well, if it was in federal property, then whatever. But I don't believe in public property.
If you're throwing stuff through public, if I own a business and you're throwing stuff through my windows and I'm paying taxes for you to protect my neighborhood and you're not doing it, there's a problem.
You're not paying taxes for them to protect your neighborhood. It has actually been ruled by the Supreme Court that the police are under no obligation to.
I don't give a crap.
You.
It's on the cars. It is on the cars.
I'm just saying the real answer is the Castle Doctrine. The real answer is the Castle Doctrine. And then you have all these public roads. Right. So people say, who will build the roads? Who will build the roads? The 7-Eleven guy and the guy who builds apartment buildings. They're the ones who are building the roads in a free society. Now you have the government building the roads, and then you have this monopoly on force coming through with their, you know what I mean? If you're messing with the 7-Eleven guy or the apartment guy or the road, then you get your security, your own self-defense. I mean, this whole system. Yeah, this whole system is about the authority being disconnected from the property and the person.
We've talked about this. It's a deep rabbit hole if we go down it, because then we go back to the Wild Wild West. But John Jasper said,
"It's not the Wild Wild West.
I'm not
You're
arguing with it.
Crazy. This is wild,
and I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad.
Are violated every minute of every day in this society than in the anarchistic West. And anarchy does not mean chaos.
I'm just glad you screwed up a word a little bit. You just messed up a word a little bit and made me feel smart.
I have been practicing being articulate and professional for a long time. So I'm glad that made you happy.
Then once a week you come on my show to remember what it's like to be dumbed down.
I do say like a lot. I did get that email that I say like a lot. I feel like it makes me seem younger.
No, but what have I told you though? You can't, you got to filter stuff out. If you try to change who you are to adapt to everybody, you'll never be you. So you be you. And if they don't like it.
Me doesn't like it.
Oh, well then you judge you. And John Jasper
said, perfect, but if I get perfect, I'll just explode and disappear.
Are they riders or agents provocateurs?
Oh yeah. They probably know each other. They're probably there causing trouble, and it's just so the guy can drive by and pick them up.
You people are so distrustful. You people are so distrustful. Go Trump 2020. Everybody can hate Trump 2020. Whatever sign you need to push up.
2020 hashtag election crisis 2020.
Do you think we'll have an election?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I think it will be. I mean, this is one of 10 possible scenarios, but I think there's a good chance that it is contested basically by both sides. And you have a kind of martial law or something. You have Trump making statements that can be interpreted as I'm not leaving office or whatever, he's going to make a bad situation worse with his mouth, which is what he's there for. That's what he's trained to do by Jeff Zucker. It's what he's being paid to do, probably also by Jeff Zucker. And that's what he's going to do.
And the liberals aren't going to help it either. It's a two-sided snake. It's a two-headed snake.
Yeah, well, they're going to say Biden won, and Trump is going to say he did it.
Biden's
and
not
then
going to be part of it by then. I'm just telling you, people up front. Biden.
Then when okay.
Biden.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either Trump. I think 1 year from now, it's quite. I think there's a 50-50 chance that it's neither Trump nor Biden as president 12 months from now. We should watch out for that.
So everybody should go buy property next to Monica, or come to the Tennessee mountains, and we'll all join our properties.
Make sure people like Kemp and Trump don't pull the power away from the localities, because that's where we're going to have to fight for our rights to collect rainwater, to defend our own property,
grow your plants,
grow chickens.
You grow chickens? How do you grow chickens?
I don't do anything. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't tell whether I have real grass or astroturf. I don't know.
You can raise chickens, but you grow like broccoli. I don't think you can grow chickens.
Yeah. Definitely harvesting chickens. Okay. Yeah, exactly. I'm totally. Oh yes, I'm happy to emphasize the fact that I am your worst. Did you see my friend Bellamy, the green anarchist? I hate that. My father said, "Don't say it's your friend if it's not your friend." I drove many hours to hang out with Bellamy, the green anarchist, and he showed me his permaculture. He's recreating the Garden of Eden. He has all these different kinds of mints. Everything was so freaking delicious. And then he tweeted after we left, like, "Oh, Monica Perez just visited our long-awaited visit to check out our garden, our forest, whatever." And curiously, all she cared about was finding herbs for her cocktails. It's like, I'm trying. Baby steps.
That's the one. When you give up on all this, you should just start doing your drinking podcast and screw the rest of it.
I thought I could be like the head of moonshine.
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden moonshine. He's got to have somebody making the moonshine, doesn't he?
You gotta have, well, yeah, there's different. You need to do the cocktails. Let somebody else do the hard whiskey and moonshine. Somebody else will do the craft beers. Right, Tell everybody.
I don't know about those luxuries at the permaculture place.
No, we'll have no. We're soft. We're gonna have luxuries. Hey, do me a favor. Tell everybody how to find you before we wrap it up.
I sure will. I am Monica Perez, at Monica Perez Show on Twitter, night and day. My website is thepropreport.com. You can sign up your email there in case as stuff hits the fan. We'll all get together there. You can find my daily show. I have a daily podcast under the Propaganda Report brand. It's called the Drive Time News Blast. It's 30 minutes every day of news of the day from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice. You can find that at Propaganda Report on any of your podcasting feeds. And if you want a little extra, if you want to come to my cocktail parties or talk to me directly, also probably any time of the night or day, go to patreon.com/Propaganda Report and look at all the wonderful offerings we have. Many tiers available for your Propaganda Report needs. And how about you, Clint? Why don't you tell people?
Did you say YouTube? Did you tell everybody YouTube?
Well, I'm on YouTube with you. It's youtube.com/Monica Perez.
There we go. My podcast are duringthebreakpodcast.com. I have conversations with super cool people, musicians, pro athletes, adventurers, business owners. I also have Dayfire podcast. If you like hiking, biking, kayaking, adventure from big to small, anywhere around the world, we talk to people from everywhere around the world about things. We just talked to somebody from out in your neck of the woods about some big time hikes out in desert country. So
I'm telling you, my husband and son are doing some giant Mount Wilson. It's like a 6-day hike.
That's cool.
Maybe he can tell your friend about it.
Yeah, we'll get them on. We also have the marketingmixradio.com where I talk business. And lastly, the singlelifepodcast.com where we talk about being single. There you go.
Fun.
It is fun. Thank you, Monica Perez.
Oh,
hey,
it's a pleasure.
Everybody go check her podcast out every day and give her some love on Patreon. And when you're done giving her some love, give me some love. Bye, everybody.